What if every stranger you met was already your neighbor? What if mercy was not an exception, but the way of life itself? Welcome, dear listener. You have arrived at Whispers of Faith, a place where the night becomes softer, where stories from Scripture breathe gently into your soul, and where the burdens of the day are set aside, so that peace may quietly take their place. Before we begin tonight's story, allow me to gently invite you to pause for a moment. If these words bring you rest, if these quiet journeys help your spirit find comfort, we ask that you support Whispers of Faith by liking this video, by subscribing to the channel, and by leaving a comment. Your presence here matters, and each gesture of kindness helps us keep these whispers alive. Now, I invite you to rest your body where you are, perhaps lying back upon your bed, perhaps letting your head sink slowly into your pillow, perhaps closing your eyes, even now, and simply breathing in and out, in and out. Let your shoulders fall with each breath. Let the muscles in your hands unclench. Let the rhythm of your chest rise and fall like waves upon a calm shore. The story we share tonight is not only a lesson from ancient days. It is a parable spoken by Christ Himself. A tale of roads and travelers, of danger and compassion, of strangers meeting in unexpected ways. It is a story known as the parable of the Good Samaritan. And though it was first spoken 2,000 years ago, its truth echoes still, as softly and as clearly as the stars above us tonight. The world of the parable begins with a question. A teacher of the law once approached Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus answered him with another question. "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" The man replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus told him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." But the man, seeking clarity, pressed further. "And who is my neighbor?" It is in this question that the parable unfolds. A question that echoes in our own lives. As we too wonder, who are those we are called to love? Who are those we are called to serve? Is it only those who look like us, live near us, believe as we do? Or is it every stranger upon the road, every soul in need, every person who crosses our path by chance or by providence? And so Jesus told this story. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. A steep, winding road carved into the desert hills. A road known not only for its rugged beauty, but also for its danger. For in those days, robbers often hid along the rocky paths, waiting for weary travelers. And this man, as he journeyed alone, fell into their hands. They stripped him of his clothing. They beat him, and they left him, half dead upon the roadside, alone, in pain, and waiting. The road grew quiet. Only the wind stirred dust across the stones. The man's breath was faint, his body trembling with weakness. He could not rise, and so he lay there, suspended between life and death, hoping, perhaps praying, that someone would pass by, someone who might see him, someone who might care. Tonight, as we begin this story, I invite you to imagine yourself walking that road. The silence of the desert around you, the stones beneath your feet, the heat of the sun slowly fading into evening coolness. Feel the weight of the day give way to the stillness of night. Here, in this quiet space, we begin the journey of compassion. Let your heart open as you listen. For the parable of the Good Samaritan is not only about a man long ago. It is about us. About the world we live in now. About the choices we face each day. And the ways we too may choose to love our neighbor. Rest now. Breathe slowly. And let us walk together into the story. The man lay still upon the rough stones of the Jericho road, his body weakened by the cruel blows of the robbers, his garments torn and scattered, his lips parched, whispering only the faintest breath. Alone, he waited, his eyes searching for the mercy of another soul. And then, in the distance, footsteps sounded upon the stones. A figure approached, clothed in dignity. It was a priest, one who served in the temple of the Lord, one who knew the scriptures, one who daily lifted prayers and offerings upon behalf of Israel. The injured man's heart stirred with fragile hope. Perhaps the priest would see him. Perhaps the servant of God would bring comfort. The priest drew near. His eyes glanced upon the broken figure, and then they looked away. He crossed to the other side of the road, his steps steady, his robes lifted above the dust. He passed by, leaving the wounded traveler to the silence of his suffering. The desert winds whispered across the stones, and the man's hope sank again. He could not lift his head to cry out. He could not call for mercy. He lay as one forgotten. Time passed, and once more the sound of steps echoed against the walls of the rocky path. Another figure appeared. A Levite, one set apart to serve the temple, to guard its holiness, to sing psalms of praise, to assist the priests in their duties. Surely this man, too, would be bound by the law of compassion. Surely his eyes would not look past a soul left to die. The Levite drew closer. He saw the man, the bruises upon his face, the trembling of his chest as breath came shallow and uneven. He looked, and then, like the priest before him, he stepped aside, crossing the road, keeping his distance. And with measured pace he continued, leaving behind the one in need. The stillness of the road deepened. The wounded man's spirit weakened. Hope, like water poured into desert sand, seemed to vanish from him. And so the parable begins with sorrow. Those who carried titles of holiness, those entrusted with the service of God, did not stop to show mercy. Their eyes saw, yet their hearts did not act. In this moment, the listener is drawn into reflection. How often do we, too, walk upon roads where others suffer unseen? How often do we cross to the other side, busy with our own concerns, hesitant to pause, afraid to step near? The parable does not accuse, but it does awaken. It holds a mirror gently before our eyes, showing us what compassion is, by first showing us what compassion is not. The desert road stretched on. The priest was gone. The Levite was gone. The man remained alone. And yet, the story had not ended. For in the unfolding of Christ's parables, grace often arrives when least expected. Picture the sun lowering in the sky, casting long shadows across the rocky cliffs. The silence of evening settling over the wilderness. The injured man drifting at the edge of consciousness. And then, faintly at first, the sound of hooves upon the stones. The slow tread of an animal drawing near. This would not be a priest, nor a Levite. It would be someone else, someone unexpected. The evening light softened. The sky above the desert stretched in fading hues of gold and rose. Shadows clung to the stone walls that framed the road. The air grew cooler, carrying with it the quiet of the wilderness. And still, the man lay motionless, his wounds aching, his body trembling at the edge of exhaustion. Then, through the stillness, came the slow, steady sound of hooves. A traveler approached, leading his donkey carefully over the rough path. His steps were not hurried, his manner not marked by grandeur. He was a Samaritan. To the people of Judea, the Samaritans were seen as outsiders, as a people divided by history, separated by worship and custom. They were often viewed with suspicion, sometimes with disdain. Their paths rarely crossed in friendship with those of Jerusalem. Yet on this lonely road, divisions of heritage and old quarrels faded beneath the larger truth of a man's suffering. The Samaritan's eyes lifted, and they fell upon the figure lying broken beside the road. His gaze lingered, not quickly turning aside, not passing swiftly onward. He looked, and his heart was moved with compassion. He did not ask the man where he had come from. He did not question his tribe, his language, his standing. He did not weigh whether this one was worthy of help. He simply saw his need. And he was stirred to mercy. Step by step, the Samaritan drew closer. He guided his animal to stand near. He knelt down upon the dust. His hands reached gently to the man's wounds. His face bent low with care. The injured man stirred faintly. Perhaps his eyes opened for a moment. Perhaps he wondered if this stranger, too, would pass by. But instead, he felt the touch of hands binding his wounds. Felt the cool oil poured upon his broken skin. Felt the soft cloth pressed against his injuries. The Samaritan carried with him oil and wine, the simple provisions of a traveler. With these, he began to cleanse and soothe the man's wounds. He tore his own cloth to bind them. He poured care into each gesture, not rushing, not fearing the cost of time. His compassion became action. His mercy took shape in every movement of his hands. And when the binding was done, he lifted the man gently, with effort and patience, raising him upon the back of his own animal. And then, choosing to walk the road himself, he led the donkey onward, so that the wounded one might ride in safety. This is the heart of the parable. That mercy came not from those most expected, not from the priest, not from the Levite, but from one despised, one regarded as an outsider. And yet it was this one whose heart was open, this one who crossed the boundary of division, this one who made a stranger into a neighbor. As the night grew deeper, the Samaritan pressed on, guiding his burden along the winding path. The desert stars began to glimmer above. The air turned cool with silence. But the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the quiet rhythm of mercy. The parable turns here from sorrow to hope, reminding all who hear it that kindness does not wait upon titles, that compassion is not reserved for the favored or the powerful. It lives instead in the heart that chooses to see, and in the hands that choose to act. The road stretched on, but the journey was no longer lonely. For where there had been despair, now there was the presence of mercy. And mercy walked with steady steps into the night. The road wound downward, carved between cliffs and stones. The night deepened with every step. The stars above glittered in ancient silence, eternal witnesses to the quiet acts of mercy unfolding below. The donkey carried the wounded man carefully, swaying with each movement. And beside him walked the Samaritan, steady, vigilant, unwavering. The desert can be merciless. Its silence can press heavy upon the spirit. Yet in that silence, the smallest act of kindness becomes radiant, like a flame flickering in vast darkness. And so, with each careful step, the Samaritan's choice of compassion lit the road ahead. The journey was not easy. The man upon the donkey stirred faintly, groaning in pain. His body leaned heavily, and often the Samaritan reached up to steady him, whispering no words, only letting his presence bear the weight of another's need. Time passed, and though the road stretched long, the the Samaritan did not falter. At last, the faint glow of lanterns appeared in the distance. An inn, set by the roadside, a place where travelers could rest, find food, and shelter their weary bodies. For the wounded man, this would become a sanctuary. The Samaritan guided the donkey to the door. He lifted the man down, carefully, gently, cradling him as though he were kin. His arms bore the burden without hesitation, and he carried him across the threshold into the warmth of the inn. Within, the air was heavy with the smell of bread and oil. The flicker of lamps glowing against the clay walls. The innkeeper looked upon them, surprised at the sight of a beaten man borne by a Samaritan. Yet the Samaritan asked for no judgment, only a place where the stranger could rest and heal. He laid the man upon a bed, arranging cloths, fetching water, ensuring his wounds were cleansed once more. He stayed through the night, tending him, feeding him when he could swallow, lifting water to his lips, watching over him as one would watch over a brother. Imagine that room. The quiet breathing of the injured man, growing steadier with each hour. The presence of the Samaritan seated nearby, eyes heavy with fatigue but unwilling to abandon his watch. Imagine the weight of that mercy filling the space, turning a simple inn into a sanctuary of healing. And as dawn slowly broke, painting the horizon with pale light, the Samaritan knew he could not remain forever. Yet he would not leave the man unprotected. He reached into his purse, drawing out 2 silver coins, placing them in the hand of the innkeeper. And he spoke words of care. "Look after him. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Oi! The Samaritan's mercy was not a fleeting moment. Not a kindness offered once and forgotten. It was a commitment. A promise. A willingness to give not only of his time and strength, but also of his resources, his very substance. His compassion was whole, reaching beyond the moment, extending into the days yet to come. The parable rests here upon a powerful truth. That love for one's neighbor is not bound by border, nor by cost, nor by convenience. It is a love that lingers, that endures, that sustains. The man who lay beaten upon the road now lay in safety. The one who had been left for dead was now watched over with life. And all of it was because a stranger, an outsider, a Samaritan, saw him and chose mercy. As the story reaches this point, we begin to feel the full weight of Christ's teaching. That the question, "Who is my neighbor?" is answered not by division, but by compassion. Not by walls, but by mercy. Not by exclusion, but by love that reaches across the boundaries of men. The road to Jericho still stretches across the stones of history. But the road of compassion stretches across the heart of every listener. Asking quietly, "Will you see? Will you stop? Will you love your neighbor as yourself?" Morning light spilled across the hills. The desert stones glowed warm once more. And within the inn, the story of compassion had reached its fullest shape. The Samaritan had bound the man's wounds, carried him upon his own animal, stayed through the night, and promised the innkeeper that every cost would be covered. A stranger had become a neighbor, and mercy had become the truest law upon the road. When Jesus finished telling this parable, his words lingered in the air. The crowd that had gathered around him grew still, and the teacher of the law, who had first asked the question, "Who is my neighbor?" sat silent, his mind turning over what he had just heard. Jesus did not leave the meaning hidden. He looked at the man and asked softly, "Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" Oi! The teacher could not deny the truth. He replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Oi! And Jesus answered, "Go and do likewise." Oi! The simplicity of those words was deeper than oceans. Go and do likewise. Oi! A command that is both quiet and thunderous. Simple to speak, yet endless in its reach. It is not enough to know the law. Not enough to carry knowledge or status. Not enough to live near holy places. True life, eternal life, is found in mercy, in compassion, in choosing to love not only those who look like us, not only those who live beside us, but every stranger upon the road. Pause for a moment here. Let the weight of that command rest gently upon your heart. It is not spoken with severity. It is not forced with harshness. It comes as an invitation, a doorway into the very heart of God. For when Christ says, "Go and do likewise," he is not sending us away with a burden. He is inviting us into freedom, into the likeness of divine love, into the kind of compassion that breaks down barriers and heals the world. The priest had passed by. The Levite had crossed the road. But the Samaritan stopped. And in stopping, he revealed the face of true neighborly love. The parable does not condemn those who walked away. It simply exposes the emptiness of faith without mercy. For the law without love is only words carved in stone. But love in action becomes life. Imagine the teacher of the law hearing those words, feeling his own question turned gently back toward him. His mind perhaps restless, but his heart awakened. For he had asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Oi! And Jesus had answered with a story that turned the question upside down. The real question is not, "Who deserves to be my neighbor?" Oi! But rather, "Will I choose to be a neighbor?" Oi! This is the turning point of the parable. Its beauty is not simply in the tale of a Samaritan's kindness. It is in the truth that compassion is the true measure of faith. It is in the invitation given to every listener, in every age, to rise above division, above prejudice, above fear, and to become a bearer of mercy. And so, as the parable closes, the road remains open before us. A road that winds through the deserts of life, through the busy streets of our cities, through the quiet places where suffering is unseen, In each of these roads lies an opportunity to see with eyes of mercy, to pause with the patience of compassion, to step near with hands ready to serve. The words of Jesus echo softly still. Go and do likewise. Oi! Carry them into your night as though they were a lamp. Let them glow gently in your thoughts as you breathe. Let them calm the noise of the day, and open your heart to the simple truth that mercy is the greatest gift you can give, and in giving it, you find life for yourself as well. Rest in that invitation tonight. Let the story settle over you, not as a demand, but as a blessing. A reminder that the road of compassion is always near, that the chance to love your neighbor is always before you, that every stranger you pass may yet be the place where God calls you to stop. And as your eyes grow heavier, as your breath deepens with the rhythm of rest, let the lesson of the Good Samaritan wrap around you like a gentle covering, soft, steady, and sure. You are invited not to strive endlessly, but simply to love, and in that love, to find peace. The story of the Good Samaritan did not remain upon the lips of Christ as a tale of ancient roads. It traveled beyond the dust of Jerusalem and Jericho, beyond the walls of the inn, beyond the ears of that teacher of the law who first asked the question. It traveled through the centuries, carried by the voices of disciples, written upon scrolls, whispered through cathedrals, remembered in the quiet prayers of believers across generations. And now, in this very moment, as you lie in your place of rest, it has reached you. The road of Jericho is not far away. It winds quietly through your own neighborhood, your own family, your own workplace, your own encounters with strangers you may never see again. Think of the roads you walk each day, not of stone and dust, but of screens and streets, of meetings and markets, of hurried footsteps and weary glances. How many walk among us carrying unseen wounds? Wounds not always of flesh, but of spirit. The bruises of loneliness, the cuts of rejection, the exhaustion of carrying burdens too heavy to name. And how many pass by? Not because they are cruel, but because they are hurried. Not because they hate, but because they are distracted. Not because they have no heart, but because their eyes are turned inward. The world moves quickly, and mercy often requires us to stop. The parable breathes into this reality, reminding us that love is not measured by the grandness of our position, not by the weight of our knowledge, not even by the titles we may hold in church or community. It is measured in the moment we see another's need and choose to pause, choose to cross the road, choose to act. Consider how mercy appears in quiet forms. A kind word spoken to someone whose heart is heavy. A simple smile offered when the world feels cold. A moment of patience in a place where frustration could rise. A meal shared. A prayer whispered for one who may never know it was offered. Each act, though small, becomes oil poured upon wounds unseen. And when Christ said, "Go and do likewise," he was not calling only for the grand acts of rescue. He was calling for hearts awake to the daily chances for compassion. For sometimes the stranger upon the road is not a beaten man upon the stones. Sometimes it is the co-worker beside you, struggling silently. Sometimes it is the neighbor whose eyes reveal a loneliness behind their smile. Sometimes it is even the friend or family member whose pain lies hidden beneath familiar words. Mercy is not bound by place. It is bound only by willingness. The willingness to see, to notice, to care. As you rest tonight, let your heart wander gently over the paths of your own life. Think of the moments where you passed by, not out of hardness, but out of haste. And allow yourself to learn. Think also of the moments where you stopped, where you reached across difference, across inconvenience, across fear. And recall how peace grew quietly in you from that act. For the parable is not only about helping another. It is also about what happens in us when we do. The Samaritan became a neighbor not just to the wounded man, but to himself. For in showing mercy, he touched the very mercy of God. And that mercy shaped him, strengthened him, deepened his humanity. This is why compassion is more than duty. It is life itself. It is the gentle current that carries us into the likeness of Christ. When you pause to care, when you give of yourself, even in the smallest measure, you are walking the road of the Good Samaritan. And that road leads not only to the healing of others, but to the healing of your own soul as well. So tonight, as you breathe more slowly, as your body sinks deeper into rest, remember that the parable still speaks into your life. It does not rest in dusty pages. It lives in your choices. It lives in your seeing. It lives in the way your hands extend, your words soften, your heart opens. The Good Samaritan walks beside you still, whispering the same invitation. Go and do likewise. Oi. Compassion does not remain still. It does not stay hidden inside the heart of one person alone. Like a stream that finds its way down the mountain, mercy flows outward, touching field and tree, stone and soil, until the landscape itself is changed. The Samaritan's act upon that lonely road did not end with the binding of wounds. It rippled outward, carrying meaning into the life of the innkeeper who witnessed it, into the ears of the disciples who heard the parable repeated, into the memory of the teacher of the law whose own question was answered not by argument but by story. And now, those ripples reach into the very life of the church, into the songs of believers, into the prayers of countless souls across centuries. So too does compassion in our lives create ripples. When one person chooses to see, others learn to see. When one hand reaches out, others grow less hesitant. When one act of mercy interrupts the cycle of neglect, it creates a pause, a space where others may follow. Consider a town where neighbors pass one another in silence. Each life sealed off in its own cares. Each heart carrying its own burdens unseen. Then one act of mercy is shown. A meal prepared for the hungry. A debt forgiven quietly. A kindness offered without thought of return. That single act becomes a seed. It plants the idea that love is possible here. That neighborliness is not forgotten. That God's presence still breathes upon this soil. And slowly, as seeds grow into roots, others begin to rise. The quiet becomes filled with warmth. The forgotten begin to feel seen. The unseen burdens are carried together. The town itself, the community itself, becomes a place where mercy is no longer rare, but expected. This is how the parable shapes not only the soul, but the very fabric of a people. For Christ's command, "Go and do likewise," was never given to one man alone. It was spoken to all who would listen. To every heart, in every generation. So that mercy would not be an isolated act, but the living heartbeat of God's kingdom upon the earth. Even now, we see the truth of this. Families grow stronger where compassion dwells. Marriages endure when mercy is offered freely. Friendships deepen when forgiveness is chosen over resentment. Communities heal when neighbors step beyond suspicion and into care. Nations themselves are drawn closer to peace when leaders choose the courage of compassion over the fear of division. The Samaritan's road is not a narrow path walked by one. It is a wide way meant for many. Each of us may step upon it. Each of us may carry another along it. And when we do, the journey ceases to be solitary. It becomes shared, woven with bonds that transform not only the traveler but the whole caravan of humanity that walks together. Let your spirit picture this. A city lit not only by lamps and windows, but by acts of mercy flickering like countless stars. A workplace where competition is softened by care. A school where kindness outweighs cruelty. A church where the least are lifted. A home where patience lingers even in moments of strain. This is the vision of the parable living beyond the story. The Good Samaritan is no longer one man upon one road. It is every believer choosing mercy upon every road they walk. And as you breathe slowly now, as the night deepens around you, let this truth rest upon your heart. Your smallest act of compassion is never wasted. It becomes part of something larger. A river that flows through the world, carrying life wherever it moves. For mercy, once given, does not end with you. It continues in those who receive it. It continues in those who witness it. It continues in those who remember it. And it circles back like rain returning to water the soil, until all creation is touched by the grace of God through the hands of His children. So sleep tonight knowing that your life, too, is part of that river. That the choice to pause, to care, to act in mercy, has the power to shape not only your own soul, but the world around you. When we look upon the Samaritan kneeling in the dust, when we watch his hands bind wounds, when we see him lifting the broken man upon his own animal, we are not only witnessing human kindness, we are seeing a glimpse of the heart of God Himself. For Scripture tells us, "The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love." The mercy shown by the Samaritan is but a mirror of the mercy first shown by the Creator. A mercy that reached to Israel when they wandered. A mercy that stretched to the nations when they were lost. A mercy that came to us in the fullness of time through Christ, who lifted humanity itself upon His shoulders. Consider how God moves through history. He does not pass by when He sees suffering. He does not cross to the other side of the road when He finds us broken by sin, wounded by sorrow, or left empty by the cruelty of the world. Instead, He comes near. He bends low. He touches the very places of our pain. He pours the oil of His Spirit upon us. He binds us with His covenant of love. He lifts us into safety, carries us with patience, and provides for us beyond measure. This is why the parable is not simply a story of ethics. It is revelation. It reveals what God is like, and what those who walk in His likeness must become. Imagine yourself lying as the wounded man, bruised, weary, unable to rise, and picture the Lord coming near. Not with condemnation, not with indifference, but with compassion. He does not ask if you deserve His mercy. He does not weigh your worth before offering care. He simply sees, and He loves, and He acts. This is the gospel woven into a parable. We were the ones left upon the road, and Christ became our Good Samaritan. He found us in our weakness, bound our wounds at the cost of His own suffering, and carried us into the inn of His kingdom where we might heal. He paid not with silver coins but with His very life. And He promised to return for us again. Let this truth rest gently within you. When you hear Christ's words, "Go and do likewise," you are not being asked to conjure mercy from emptiness. You are being asked to reflect the mercy you yourself have received, to mirror the love already poured into you, to become a vessel through which the compassion of God flows into the lives of others. And here lies the deep peace of the parable. For the more you give mercy, the more you discover the endless supply of it in God. The more you extend compassion, the more you taste the depth of His compassion for you. The more you act in love, the more you realize that love is not a task, but a gift. So tonight, as you rest in the stillness of this story, know that you are not merely called to be merciful. You are already carried by mercy. You are not only told to love your neighbor. You are already loved beyond measure by the One who made you. You are not simply asked to see the suffering of others. You are already seen in every moment of your life by the eyes of God. Let the quiet of this truth wash over you now. You are safe in His compassion. You are surrounded by His kindness. You are held by His hands. And as you breathe in and breathe out, you are reminded that your life rests not in the indifference of the world, but in the mercy of the Good Shepherd, who never passes you by. Sleep with this thought: that compassion is not foreign. It is divine. It is not rare. It is near. It is not only a command. It is a reflection of the very God who made you. And when you show mercy, you are walking in step with His heart. Mercy does not flow in only one direction. It is never merely the gift of the strong to the weak, of the whole to the broken, of the passerby to the wounded. No. Mercy is a circle. It touches both the one who receives and the one who gives. It lifts the fallen, yes, but it also reshapes the one who bends low to lift. Think again of the Samaritan upon that lonely road. He began his day as a traveler like any other, carrying his provisions, minding his journey, perhaps thinking of business, of family, of his destination ahead. Yet when he chose to stop, when he knelt beside the bruised man, something within him shifted. The road he walked became holy ground. The act of binding wounds became more than kindness. It became communion. For in that moment, the Samaritan was not only helping another, he was himself being changed. This is the mystery of compassion, that in giving, we receive. In pouring ourselves out, we are filled. In carrying the burdens of others, we discover our own hearts grow lighter. It is not a trick, nor a transaction. It is the design of God, that mercy would be life for all who walk in it. Perhaps you have felt this yourself. The quiet warmth that lingers in your chest after offering kindness. The sense of lightness after forgiving someone who wronged you. The unexpected peace after taking time to listen when you could have hurried on. These are the small evidences that mercy transforms not only situations, but souls. And what of the wounded man? Surely his life was restored by the Samaritan's care. Yet think also of the Samaritan himself. His journey was interrupted. His resources were spent. His time was delayed. And yet, by choosing mercy, his life was woven into a story told for generations. His simple act became a parable spoken by the Son of God. His footsteps upon the road became eternal testimony. So too with us. When we stop to show compassion, the world may not notice. No one may write our names upon scrolls. No gospel may record our deeds. Yet heaven takes notice. The heart of God delights. And in us, unseen roots of grace grow deeper. Our souls are softened, our vision becomes clearer, our lives begin to mirror more closely the very character of Christ. This is why the call of Jesus is never a burden but a blessing. For when he says, "Go and do likewise," he is not asking you to lose yourself. He is showing you how to truly find yourself. How to step into the life you were made for. A life that reflects divine love. A life where peace does not come from holding tightly but from pouring freely. As you lie in stillness tonight, think gently of this circle of mercy. Picture yourself both as the wounded man and as the Samaritan. For at times you are in need of compassion, and at times you are called to give it. And in both, God is present. In both, you are drawn deeper into His heart. Mercy heals wounds, but it also heals pride. It teaches us that we are not self-sufficient, that we need one another. That community is born not in power but in care. Each act of compassion loosens the grip of selfishness. Each step toward another loosens the chains of fear. The Samaritan did not simply heal a man. He healed the distance between peoples. He showed that mercy breaks barriers. And in choosing to act, his own soul was open to a greater truth. That every life is bound together under the gaze of God. Rest in this truth as sleep draws near. Your acts of mercy may seem small, but they ripple into eternity. They shape not only the lives of those you touch, but also your own spirit, making it softer, kinder, nearer to the likeness of the one who loved you first. Compassion is not always comfortable. It is not always convenient. It does not wait for perfect timing, nor does it ask if the road will be smooth. Mercy comes when it is needed. And often, that need appears suddenly, disrupting our plans, stretching our patience, testing our willingness. Think of the Samaritan once more. He had his own destination, his own schedule, his own burdens to carry. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho was not a place for lingering. It was known for danger, known for thieves and sudden violence. To pause was to risk exposure. To kneel in the dust beside a broken stranger was to invite danger upon himself. Yet compassion pulled him beyond fear. He could have said, "It is not my place." Or he could have reasoned, "Others will come after me." Or he could have whispered to himself, "This road is too dangerous. I must protect myself." But he did not. He chose instead to step into sacrifice. He gave his time, his strength, his resources, his safety, for the sake of another. This is the path of true mercy. It is not offered only when it is easy. It is not poured out only when we have abundance. It is revealed when love requires us to give beyond comfort. Think of moments in your own life. Perhaps you have felt the hesitation, the pause before choosing kindness. Perhaps you have known the quiet resistance of your heart saying, "I am too tired, too busy, too uncertain." Oi. And yet, when you pushed past that hesitation, when you chose compassion despite the cost, something sacred unfolded. The light of God broke through your fear. And in that moment, courage became love. The Samaritan risked ridicule too. For Jews and Samaritans were divided by centuries of distrust. To carry a wounded Jew upon his animal was to invite whispers, perhaps even anger from both sides. Yet he did not let prejudice stop him. He did not let division dictate his choices. He stepped into sacrifice with courage. And mercy became greater than boundaries. And here lies the heart of Christ's teaching. That love for neighbor is not love until it costs something. Not love until it calls us beyond ourselves. Not love until it breaks through the walls of convenience and comfort. The Apostle John would later write, "This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters." Oi. True compassion mirrors this truth. It carries weight. It bears sacrifice. It demands courage. Picture yourself upon the road tonight, walking with the Samaritan, feeling the strain of lifting the wounded man, sensing the heaviness of his body across your shoulders, the sweat upon your brow, the trembling in your arms, the ache in your back as you carry him step by step. This is what compassion feels like. It is not a thought or an intention alone. It is love made visible in labor. And yet, in the very act of giving, there is a strange and beautiful paradox. What feels heavy in the moment becomes light upon the soul. What feels costly at first becomes treasure stored in heaven. What feels like sacrifice becomes salvation, not only for the one helped, but for the one helping. The world often teaches that strength lies in self-protection, that wisdom lies in preserving what is ours. But Christ teaches that true strength is found in giving, that true wisdom is found in surrendering, that true life is found in losing it for the sake of love. So when he says, "Go and do likewise," he is calling you into courage, into the willingness to be interrupted, into the boldness to give when it seems inconvenient, into the faith that trusts God to provide even when compassion feels costly. Tonight, let this truth settle over you. Mercy may not always be easy. It may not always be safe. It may not always be welcomed by those who see it. But it is always holy. It is always sacred. It is always the way of Christ. And as you drift slowly toward rest, breathe in the courage of the Samaritan. Breathe out your own fears of scarcity. Breathe in the mercy of God. Breathe out your hesitations. Allow your heart to rest in the knowledge that every act of love offered in courage is remembered by heaven, treasured by God, and woven into the great story of his kingdom. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho was not a hurried place. Each step upon its stones required attention. Each bend of the path revealed both beauty and danger. Yet even so, travelers often pressed forward quickly, eager to reach safety before nightfall. Eager to reach home or market. Eager to complete their journey. And in such urgency, the broken can be overlooked. The priest hurried on. The Levite stepped aside. Both saw, yet neither stopped. Their eyes noticed, but their hearts remained closed. For compassion cannot live in a hurried spirit. It requires pause. It requires the willingness to stop. The Samaritan, however, slowed his steps. He let the urgency of his own plans fade into silence. He turned his full gaze toward the wounded man. And in that slowing, he truly saw him. Not as an obstacle. Not as an interruption. But as a neighbor. A soul beloved by God. So it is with us. The rhythms of life press us onward. The clocks and calendars whisper of deadlines and duties. Our thoughts fill with errands, with tasks, with the noise of endless lists. And yet, the voice of compassion is quieter, softer, more easily drowned beneath the rush. To hear it, we must be willing to slow down. How many times have we passed by someone's pain because we felt there was no time? How often have we looked without seeing, heard without listening, brushed aside the faint signals of suffering in those around us? Not out of cruelty, but out of haste. The world rushes us forward, but mercy asks us to pause. Slowing down is itself an act of faith. It is the trust that the world will not collapse if we stop for another. That God Himself holds the order of our days. That the eternal matters more than the urgent. When the Samaritan paused, the road did not vanish. His journey did not disappear. But eternity touched the present through his choice. Imagine if he had hurried past. The story would have ended like so many others. Another life overlooked. Another wound ignored. But by slowing, by noticing, he stepped into a story that would echo for centuries. His pause became a parable. This is the invitation to you as well. To slow the rushing of your own spirit. To create space in which compassion may breathe. To let your eyes rest upon the faces around you, not as passing shadows, but as souls carrying weight unseen. To notice the weariness in a friend's voice. To linger long enough to ask a neighbor how they truly are. To pause when the Spirit stirs you, even if the schedule resists. For often it is in the slowing that we see Christ most clearly. His ministry was full of interruptions. The blind calling out by the roadside. The sick pressing through crowds to touch his garment. The children rushing near when others tried to push them away. Again and again, he stopped. He noticed. He turned toward them. And in those pauses, healing flowed. To be a neighbor, then, is to follow the same rhythm. Not a hurried stride, but a patient presence. Not a passing glance, but an attentive gaze. Not a life pressed forward by urgency, but a life anchored in the eternal now where mercy dwells. So as you breathe slowly now, let your heart learn to slow as well. Let the rush of today's tasks fade into the background. Let the noise of unfinished duties drift away like sand in the wind. And in this quiet, imagine yourself walking the road. You see a figure in need. And instead of passing quickly, you stop. You kneel. You linger. You allow the moment to matter more than your schedule. That is compassion. To see fully. To stop willingly. To act patiently. Tonight, may your rest be unhurried. May your breathing remind you of the gentle pace of grace. May your soul find freedom in knowing that the eternal does not rush. And tomorrow, when the road awaits you again, may you carry the courage to pause. To notice. To see. And to love. When the Samaritan stooped down in the dust of the Jericho road, he did more than bind wounds. He did more than pour oil and wine upon torn skin. He entered into the suffering of another. He made the stranger's burden his own. The bruises upon the man's body became weight upon his own shoulders. The delay upon the road became delay in his own journey. The cost of care became cost from his own purse. The risk of danger became risk to his own safety. In every way, he chose to share in the suffering of another. This is the deep truth of compassion. It does not simply observe from a distance. It does not offer help only when convenient. It does not say, "I will pray for you," and then keep walking. It draws near. It bends low. It takes upon itself part of the burden carried by another. The Apostle Paul would later write, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Oi! What law is this? The law of love. The same love spoken by Jesus when he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." Oi! The same love revealed in the Samaritan's choice. The same love poured out by Christ upon the cross, when he bore upon his own shoulders the weight of the world's sin. To carry another's burden does not mean we erase their pain entirely. It means we walk beside them so they do not carry it alone. It means that their tears are met with presence. That their hunger is met with bread. That their loneliness is met with company. That their fear is met with steadfastness. Think of the Samaritan again. Guiding his donkey with steady hands, while the wounded man lay across its back. Step after step, the beast moved slowly, weighed down by the body it carried. And step after step, the Samaritan walked beside them. His own feet upon the stones, his own body tired, his own journey delayed. But he bore it willingly, because love had taken root in his heart. How many of us long to be carried in such a way? And how many around us long for someone to share their hidden weight? The burdens of grief. The burdens of anxiety. the burdens of broken relationships, the burdens of poverty, the burdens of illness. They are heavy, too heavy for one to bear alone. And yet, when another steps beside us, even the heaviest weight becomes lighter. Perhaps you have known this in your own life. The phone call from a friend who listened without judgment. The helping hand when you could not lift something alone. The prayer whispered over you when your strength was gone. These are glimpses of what it means to carry one another's burdens. And perhaps you have been the one who offered it. The late-night drive to sit beside someone in sorrow. The quiet gift left without name or recognition. The patience given to someone who did not deserve it. In those moments, you too became like the Samaritan, choosing to make another's burden your own. This is the heart of Christ's kingdom. That no one is left to suffer alone. That no one is left lying upon the roadside unseen. That the body of Christ carries itself together. Each member lifting, each member being lifted. And as you rest tonight, let this truth comfort you. Whatever weight you carry, you are not abandoned upon the road. God Himself draws near to shoulder your burden. His Spirit intercedes when your prayers falter. His people, though imperfect, are called to walk beside you. And as you breathe slowly, consider too the invitation that waits upon your own path. Who around you carries a weight unseen? Who lies in silence hoping for a Samaritan to notice? Whose shoulders are bent under a load too heavy to bear alone? Compassion whispers that you need not solve everything. You need not heal every wound. You need not carry the entire burden. Only step beside them. Only share the weight. Only remind them through your presence that they are not alone. The Samaritan's story lives because he chose to do just that. He chose to make a stranger's suffering his own. He chose to walk slower, to walk heavier, so that another might live. And in doing so, he fulfilled the law of Christ more deeply than those who hurried past with sacred titles. So tonight, as the night deepens around you, rest in this peace. You are carried, and you are called to carry. You are held by the mercy of God, and you are invited to hold others within that same mercy. This is the circle of compassion, the mystery of burdens shared, the road of neighborly love that stretches on, mile after mile, into eternity. The world often mistakes compassion for weakness. It looks upon the one who pauses, the one who bends low, the one who gives generously, and says, "They are soft. They will be taken advantage of. They will not survive in a world where the strong rule and the ruthless climb higher." Yet the parable of the Good Samaritan whispers a different truth. That compassion is not weakness. It is the deepest strength. The priest walked past with dignity. The Levite stepped aside with caution. Both seemed strong in their standing, secure in their positions. Yet their strength did not last. Their legacy within the parable is silence, absence, emptiness. They are remembered not for what they did, but for what they failed to do. The Samaritan, however, is remembered forever. Not because he wielded power, not because he displayed wealth, not because he commanded respect in the eyes of men, but because he chose compassion. His act, seen by no crowd, praised by no herald, echoed into eternity. For strength rooted in mercy endures when worldly strength fades. Consider how Christ himself revealed power. He did not conquer with armies. He did not reign with weapons. He did not crush his enemies with force. Instead, he showed the strength of love. He touched lepers when others shrank away. He ate with outcasts when others cast stones. He washed the feet of his disciples when others sought thrones. And in his greatest act, he laid down his life, not resisting, but embracing the cross. And through that mercy, death itself was defeated. This is the paradox of the kingdom of God. That what seems weak to the world is strength in heaven. That what seems small becomes great. That what seems like surrender becomes victory. Think again of the Samaritan's journey. He risked his safety. He gave his resources. He carried the burden of another. To some, it may have seemed foolish. To slow upon a dangerous road, to risk his own well-being for a stranger who might not even thank him. Yet in truth, it was strength. The kind of strength that pushes back the darkness. The kind of strength that changes stories, changes lives, changes hearts. Even history itself has been shaped by compassion. The hospitals founded by those who longed to care for the sick. The schools raised by those who believed every child deserved to learn. The shelters built for the homeless. The movements for justice led by those who could not ignore the suffering of others. Each began not with power as the world defines it, but with mercy. Each began with someone who looked at a stranger, a neighbor, a brother, a sister, and chose to act. And still today, this strength is needed. In a world filled with division, where anger rises quickly and bitterness spreads easily, compassion is the true power that heals. It disarms hostility. It softens hardened hearts. It turns enemies into friends. It bridges what hatred has broken. Perhaps you have seen this in your own life. A moment when anger could have ruled, but forgiveness was chosen instead. A situation where harshness could have been given, but gentleness prevailed. A relationship that seemed broken beyond repair, yet was mended by patience and mercy. These are not signs of weakness. They are proof of strength greater than force. The Samaritan was not the strongest by worldly measure, but his story outlasts kings. His mercy was not the loudest, but it still echoes in the quiet of our hearts tonight. So as you rest, let this truth settle within you, that every act of compassion you choose, no matter how small, is strength. Strength to resist selfishness. Strength to push back despair. strength to reflect the heart of God, strength to build a world where mercy is not rare, but common. The road before you may ask for courage. It may ask for sacrifice. But know this: it will also reveal strength you did not know you carried. For in every act of compassion, God's power flows through you. Sleep tonight with this thought: you are not weak when you love. You are not diminished when you give. You are strong in the only way that endures. Strong with the strength of heaven. The Samaritan's footsteps faded from the Jericho road. His donkey carried the weight of another man. His coins rested in the hand of the innkeeper. And perhaps, when dawn rose the next morning, there were no songs sung for him, no monuments raised, no crowd waiting to applaud. His act of mercy may have seemed quiet, ordinary, hidden within the flow of days. But heaven saw. Heaven always sees. For every act of compassion, whether noticed or forgotten by men, is gathered into the eternal memory of God. Not one drop of mercy is wasted. Not one gesture of kindness slips into silence unseen. Every word of comfort spoken, every burden carried, every wound bound, is planted like a seed in the soil of eternity. Jesus spoke of this often. Whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones because he is my disciple, truly, I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward. A cup of water. So small, so simple, yet remembered forever by the one who sees all things. The Good Samaritan story reminds us that mercy bears fruit not only in the present, but in the ages to come. The man's wounds were healed. His life was spared. His hope was restored. But more than that, his story became the teaching of Christ. A parable that has shaped countless lives. A seed that blossomed into fields of compassion across centuries. So too it is with your acts of kindness. They may seem small, unnoticed, quickly forgotten by those around you. Yet in the hidden places of heaven, they shine. They are gathered like treasures in God's storehouse. They echo in ways you may never see. They ripple through generations. Think of this. A word of encouragement you spoke years ago may still live in the heart of someone who heard it. A small gift offered in secret may have lifted a burden that changed the course of another's journey. A prayer whispered quietly may have shaped events you will not know until eternity. This is the mystery of mercy. It bears fruit beyond what our eyes can measure. Even the Samaritan could not have known that his compassion would become a story told for millennia. He did not bind wounds expecting to be remembered. He did not give coins expecting a reward. He simply acted in mercy. And from that simple act, an eternal lesson was planted. So it is with you. The choice you make to love, to forgive, to serve, to pause for another, may feel small, but it is eternal. It is gathered into the heart of God, and it will never be lost. As you breathe slowly tonight, think of your own life as a field. Each act of compassion is a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, bringing joy to those around you in ways you can see. Others sink deep into the soil, hidden, unseen, waiting for the season appointed by God to bloom. Perhaps not in your lifetime, perhaps not in your sight, but surely in His plan. Do not measure your compassion by the applause of men. Do not count your mercy by how quickly it is returned. Trust instead that heaven has already marked it, that eternity has already received it. For on that road, long after the Samaritan walked away, the story endured. And so too will your story endure, if it is written with mercy. Let this truth give you rest tonight, that nothing offered in love is ever wasted, that no act of compassion is ever forgotten, that your life, when lived in mercy, is being sown into eternity, where fruit will bloom forever. The parable of the Good Samaritan is not only a lesson in ethics, not only a guide for human kindness. It is also a doorway into the mystery of Christ Himself. For in every act of compassion, we are not simply helping another. We are joining with the very life of the one who carried our greatest burden. The Samaritan bent low upon the road, but Christ bent lower still. He left the heights of heaven, where angels sang and glory filled eternity, and He entered the dust of earth. He clothed Himself in frailty. He walked among our wounds. He touched our brokenness with His own hands. He made our suffering His own. Where the Samaritan poured oil and wine upon a stranger's cuts, Christ poured out His blood upon the wounds of all humanity. Where the Samaritan lifted a broken man upon his donkey, Christ lifted the sins of the world upon His shoulders and carried them to the cross. Where the Samaritan paid silver coins for the man's recovery, Christ gave His very life as ransom, promising to return again for us. This is why compassion is holy, why mercy is sacred. For when we stop upon the road, when we bend low beside another's pain, we are walking in the footsteps of Christ. We are participating in His mission. We are becoming living reflections of the love that first saved us. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Carry each other's burdens, and so you will fulfill the law of Christ." What is the law of Christ? That we love as He has loved us. That we give as He has given us. That we lay down our lives not in grand gestures alone, but in daily choices of mercy. When you forgive, you echo His forgiveness. When you show patience, you mirror His long-suffering. When you lift another, you remember how He lifted you. When you love your neighbor, you walk in the very way of Christ. This is the deep secret of compassion. It is not a task placed upon us from outside. It is Christ's own life living within us. His Spirit moving our hearts, stirring our hands, guiding our steps, so that what He began in Galilee continues in you. What He began upon the cross continues upon the roads you walk. Think of this as you rest tonight. That when you pause for mercy, heaven is nearer than you know. Christ is not far away, watching from a distance. He is within you, breathing His compassion into your soul. His love does not merely inspire your love. It becomes your love. It flows through you as naturally as breath. And when you feel weary, when compassion feels too costly, when mercy feels too heavy, remember that you are not carrying it alone. Just as the Samaritan guided his donkey beside the burden, so Christ walks beside you. His strength within you, His Spirit sustaining you, His presence ensuring you will not falter. The union grows deeper each time you choose love. Each act of compassion draws you nearer to His heart. Each choice to forgive ties your life closer to His cross. Each step to help another is a step walked with Him upon the eternal road of mercy. This is why the Good Samaritan is more than a story. It is a picture of Christ. And it is also a picture of what you are becoming in Him. So let this truth wrap around you tonight. You are not only called to compassion. You are carried by compassion Himself. You are not only asked to love. You are loved by the One whose mercy has no end. You are not only invited to carry another's burden. You are carried by the Savior who bore all burdens upon His shoulders. Rest in that union. Rest in the peace that you are never alone upon the road. Rest in the quiet joy that every act of mercy ties you closer to Him. And as sleep comes, let your final thought be this: that to love your neighbor is to walk with Christ Himself. The Samaritan did not ask the wounded man for his name. He did not pause to inquire about his tribe, his city, or his heritage. He did not weigh his worth by the color of his clothing or the accent of his voice. He simply saw a fellow human being in need. And in that seeing, division dissolved. The barriers of Jew and Samaritan, friend and stranger, were broken by compassion. This is one of the most beautiful truths of mercy. It draws us together. It binds us into one family. It whispers that we are not separate, though we often act as though we are. It teaches us that beyond our differences of language, culture, history, and place, there runs a deeper unity. The shared breath of God in every soul. When Christ told this parable, He was not merely answering the question, "Who is my neighbor?" He was breaking apart the walls that men had built to keep neighbor and stranger apart. He was showing that the family of God is wider than we imagine. Wider than borders. Wider than custom. Wider than the lines we draw to separate ourselves from one another. The Samaritan was, in the eyes of many, an outsider. And yet he became the truest example of what it means to be a neighbor. His compassion revealed that belonging is not written in bloodlines, nor secured by heritage, nor preserved by law. It is born in love. Think of how many divisions mark the world even now. Races against races. Nations against nations. Classes against classes. Politics, creeds, histories that fracture us into pieces. And yet, whenever compassion appears, those walls begin to crumble. A hand extended across division creates a bridge. A gesture of kindness silences suspicion. A choice to see another as neighbor unravels the knot of hostility. This is the mystery of the body of Christ. It is not made of those who are alike, but of those who have been made one in Him. Paul would write, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." The family of God is a tapestry woven of every thread, every shade, every language, every story, bound together not by uniformity, but by the golden thread of love. Compassion teaches us this unity in ways nothing else can. For when you kneel beside another's suffering, you forget the categories that once divided you. Their pain becomes your pain. Their tears draw out your tears. Their burden rests upon your shoulders. And in that moment, you are not strangers. You are family. Perhaps you have felt this in your own life. That moment when someone you never knew became dear to you because of shared struggle. That instant when a barrier collapsed because love entered. That friendship born not from similarity but from compassion offered in time of need. These are glimpses of the kingdom of God. For in the kingdom, there are no outsiders, no forgotten tribes, no nameless wanderers left upon the road. All are neighbors. All are family. All are embraced by the mercy of Christ. And so the parable teaches us that compassion is not only a moral choice. It is the way God knits His people together. The Samaritan and the wounded man, so different in the eyes of the world, became one in that act of mercy. Their lives touched, their stories entwined, their destinies bound by love. As you rest tonight, let this truth bring peace to your spirit. You are not alone in the world. You are not isolated, even when loneliness whispers otherwise. You are part of a greater family. A family drawn together not by accident, but by the mercy of God. And tomorrow, when you walk your own roads, remember that every stranger you meet may already be kin. Every face you pass may already be brother or sister in the heart of Christ. Every opportunity for compassion is not merely an act of kindness. It is an act of unity. The family of God is built not by walls, but by mercy. Not by division, but by compassion. Not by exclusion, but by love. And in showing mercy, you are binding the world together in the way Christ intended. So sleep now in that unity. Rest in the quiet knowledge that you are part of a great family. Bound not by borders, but by love. Embraced not by law, but by grace. Carried not by force, but by compassion. The Samaritan could have allowed fear to rule him. The road was dangerous. The robbers who struck down the wounded man might have still been near. Every moment he lingered was a moment of risk. Yet when he chose mercy, something greater than fear filled his heart. A peace that comes only when love has conquered hesitation. This is one of the hidden gifts of compassion. That while it heals another, it also heals the giver. It plants peace deep within the soul. It calms the storms of restlessness. It silences the voices of fear that so often drive us onward. Think of the priest who passed by. His robes unstained. His schedule undisturbed. His safety intact. Yet what did he carry with him as he walked away? Perhaps a gnawing unease. The quiet knowledge that he had looked upon suffering and done nothing. Perhaps the emptiness of missed opportunity. The hollowness that lingers when mercy is withheld. And think of the Samaritan instead. His robes were stained with dust. His journey delayed. His purse made lighter. Yet he carried with him peace. The peace of knowing he had acted in love. The peace of knowing he had become a neighbor to one in need. The peace that whispers softly, "You have done what God delights in." Oi! This peace is not fleeting. It is not the shallow calm the world offers through distraction or comfort. It is the deep stillness that comes from walking in harmony with the heart of God. It is the rest that settles over the soul when we know we have chosen rightly. Have you ever known such peace? That quiet settling in your chest after forgiving someone. That soft warmth in your heart after helping a stranger without expectation. That calm assurance that rises when you step past fear and into love. These are glimpses of the peace of Christ. The peace that surpasses understanding. Compassion is not only a gift for others. It is medicine for your own soul. It frees you from the chains of self-centeredness. It loosens the grip of fear. It calms the storm of endless striving. For mercy teaches you that you are not defined by what you accumulate, but by what you give. Not by how quickly you move, but by how deeply you love. And here lies another mystery of the kingdom. The world tells us that peace is found in control, in securing enough, in protecting ourselves from risk. But Christ tells us that peace is found in surrender, in generosity, in laying down what we cling to for the sake of another. The Samaritan risked himself, and yet he walked in peace. His hands were emptied of coin, but his heart was filled. His journey was delayed, but his soul was quickened. His safety was tested, but his spirit was secure. For the peace that flows from compassion is not dependent on circumstance. It is born of heaven itself. So tonight, as you rest in the quiet of your own room, breathe in this peace. Let the worries of the day drift away like dust upon the Jericho wind. Let the fears of tomorrow dissolve into the silence of God's presence. Let the storms within your mind grow calm as you remember that mercy has the power to steady the soul. Every act of compassion you give tomorrow will not only bless another, it will bless you. It will remind you of who you are in Christ. It will ground you when the world feels unsteady. It will quiet your spirit when fear rises. For mercy plants peace. Peace in the one who receives. Peace in the one who gives. Peace in the world that watches. Peace that endures beyond the moment. Peace that whispers softly, "This is the way of Christ." Walk in it. And rest. Oi. The Samaritan's mercy was not an isolated spark. It was not a single act detached from the rest of his life. It was the fruit of a heart already shaped by compassion. For such acts do not appear by accident. They rise from habits formed, from a spirit trained to see, from a life ready to love at every turn. This is the deeper invitation of the parable. Not only to show compassion once, when the story demands it, but to cultivate mercy as a way of life. To let it become a daily rhythm, steady as breathing. Think of how easily we slip into seeing compassion as extraordinary, as rare, as something reserved for the big moments. But in truth, mercy is meant to be ordinary, woven into the fabric of every day. Mercy in how you speak to those near you. Mercy in the patience you extend to the weary. Mercy in the kindness you offer without thought of recognition. The Good Samaritan is remembered for one act. But that act flowed from a heart that must have been shaped by many small choices before it. Countless unseen decisions to live gently, to see others as neighbors, to let love guide more than convenience. And so, when the great moment came, he was ready. This is the calling for us as well. To let compassion be the steady posture of our souls. So that whether the road before us holds great need or small, we are ready. Ready to pause. Ready to serve. Ready to love. Mercy as a way of life does not wait for dramatic scenes. It breathes in the ordinary. It lives in the daily. It shines when you greet someone with warmth. When you forgive before bitterness takes root. When you give thanks instead of complaint. When you slow your steps to notice the person others overlook. Jesus himself lived this rhythm. Yes, he healed the blind, raised the dead, fed thousands. But he also washed feet. He also lingered with children. He also noticed the woman who touched his cloak in the crowd. His compassion was not only in great miracles. It was in daily mercy, constant as sunrise. So too must ours be. For the world does not only need grand gestures. It needs the daily faithfulness of small mercies. Seeds sown again and again until fields of love rise in their place. Picture your life as a road stretching long. Each day is a mile, each encounter a moment where compassion may appear. Some days, the road holds someone wounded deeply, in need of great care. Other days, it may be only a weary smile that needs encouragement. But in every mile, mercy has its place. To live this way is to embody Christ's words, "Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." Oi. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. But always. In season and out of season. In public and in secret. in great sacrifice and in simple patience. As you rest tonight, imagine tomorrow not as a list of tasks, but as a journey of compassion. Each step an opportunity. Each face a neighbor. Each moment a chance to go and do likewise. And let this thought bring peace. You do not need to manufacture great acts to matter in God's kingdom. You need only to walk in mercy. To choose compassion again and again until it becomes the rhythm of your life. For when compassion is your rhythm, love will never be absent. And when love is never absent, Christ is always near. The road of compassion does not end upon the dust of earth. It stretches onward, beyond the horizon of our days, into the eternal kingdom of God. For every act of mercy sown here becomes a treasure gathered there. Every burden carried for another becomes a crown laid before the throne. Every choice to love is woven into the fabric of eternity itself. The Samaritan could not have known that his steps upon that lonely road would echo across millennia. Yet Christ chose his act as a parable that would never fade. And in that, we see a glimpse of what eternity remembers. Heaven holds not the wealth we amass, not the power we wield, not the accolades men give, but the mercy we have shown, the love we have lived, the compassion we have carried. Jesus spoke of this mystery when he said, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Every bandage tied, every tear wiped, every stranger seen, is received as an offering to Christ himself. The eternal kingdom records it. The heart of God treasures it. And so, the parable does more than instruct. It prepares. It reminds us that the road we walk is not endless wandering, but pilgrimage. Each act of compassion is a step closer to home. Each choice of mercy is a step deeper into the likeness of Christ. Each neighbor loved is another echo of eternity breaking into time. Think of the Samaritan guiding his donkey in the starlit night. The wounded man swaying gently upon its back. The inn lanterns glowing faintly ahead. In that moment, the road itself became holy. What seemed ordinary became eternal. What seemed temporary became testimony. This is what happens when love enters our choices. Your life, too, holds such holy roads. The quiet acts of care you give, even unseen, are not forgotten. They are stitched into the eternal story of God's kingdom. They become lights along the road that will one day lead you into His presence. Perhaps tonight you feel weary. Perhaps you wonder if your small acts matter. If your compassion is too quiet, too hidden, too easily overlooked. Let the parable remind you that heaven does not measure as men measure. Heaven sees the widow's coin as treasure, the child's prayer as incense, the Samaritan's pause as eternal strength. And so, the invitation remains. Walk in mercy. Live in compassion. Sow seeds of love along the road. For each step shapes your soul for eternity. Each act prepares you for the kingdom where love alone endures. As your breath deepens now, and your body grows heavy with rest, imagine yourself walking toward that kingdom. The roads behind you lined with every act of mercy you have given. Each one glowing faintly, like lanterns in the dusk, leading you onward toward the light that does not fade. Rest in this thought. Compassion is never wasted. It prepares you for eternity. It anchors you in the love of God. It ensures that when the final road is walked, you will find yourself already at home in the presence of mercy himself. The story has been told. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho has been walked in our imagination. The beaten man, once left for dead, has been lifted by mercy. The Samaritan, once despised by men, has been remembered as the true neighbor. The inn has become a place of healing. And the words of Christ have lingered over us like a blessing. Go and do likewise. Oi. Now, dear listener, you rest in the stillness of night, and the parable rests within you. It is no longer only a story upon ancient lips. It is a living truth sown into your heart. Let the lesson settle gently. Compassion is not an exception. It is the way of life. Mercy is not weakness. It is the deepest strength. Love is not a passing choice. It is the rhythm of eternity. As you lie in the quiet, let your breath slow. Inhale softly. Exhale deeply. Feel the weight of the day slip from your shoulders. Let your body sink into the safety of your bed, as though you too have been carried into an inn of peace, tended by hands greater than your own. You are not alone upon the road. The same Christ who spoke this parable walks beside you. He sees your wounds, and he binds them. He knows your burdens, and he carries them. He watches your journey, and he guides you. He prepares a place for you, where you will rest forever in his mercy. Think of his words again. Which of these was a neighbor? Oi. And let your soul answer, not with debate, but with peace. The one who showed mercy. Oi. For this is the eternal answer. This is the path of life. The road of compassion stretches before you, yes. But for now, the night is long, and rest is near. Allow the parable to become a lullaby for your soul. The Samaritan's footsteps fade into the silence of evening. The wounded man breathes in safety. The lantern glows softly within the inn. And the stars above whisper that mercy still shines upon the earth. Sleep, then, in this peace. Sleep knowing that you are loved. Sleep knowing that you are carried by mercy greater than your own. Sleep knowing that tomorrow, when the road awaits you again, compassion will guide your steps. For tonight, there is nothing more to do. Nothing more to carry. Nothing more to fear. Only rest. Only peace. Only the quiet assurance that love endures, and mercy watches over you. And so the parable ends. and so your rest begins. Good night, dear soul. Good night in the embrace of Christ's compassion. Good night in the whispers of faith.